Hey guys, let's start with new chapter of Loyalpin Volume 2, Chapter 51, Encounter. The sunlight streams through the sheer curtains, fluttering in front of the wide window, creating a shadow of light that falls onto the solemn and dignified face of the king of the Saftarat family. He was concentrating entirely on many documents on the writing table when his youngest daughter came to meet him. So, you're here. I've been looking for you for a long time. Princess Anel respected her father in a dignified gesture, as usual. Her dark eyes now radiated a sparkle that made her beautiful face look more determined than ever. You're just saying that, the king said, smiling. You know very well that if you can't find me in the garden, you can always find me here. Princess Anel smiled in response before sitting on the guest. When she saw father extend his hand and invite her to sit, the king raised his hand to call for his chamberlain. Your Majesty, one of the chamberlains stationed in the royal reading room hurriedly walked over and knelt beside the king's knee. May I have a new pot? Yes, Your Majesty. The chamberlain received the king's word before walking out in a hurry. The king looked until he was sure the chamberlain had walked out of the royal reading room, then spoke. Do you have any business with me? How did you know I have a business to discuss? Have you come to see me like this in ages? No, today it's to the point of using the word search for me. It seems like there must be something important. I have something important to tell you. So, let's just say, what worries do you have, Anil? At this point, Princess Anil's back suddenly straightened until vertical, her sharp eyes fixed on her father's eyes for a long time. I have come to ask you for your permission, Your Majesty. What would you like to ask for? The king's voice at this time sounded very sweet and gentle. I would like to remain single for the rest of my life, Your Majesty. At the end of Princess Anel's voice, every sound suddenly became silent. The surroundings around his body seemed to be still and not moving. The king's face, filled with fondness for his daughter, was noticeably more solemn. What do you mean? I don't understand at all. I mean, I won't get married, Your Highness. Whatever you do, you have thought it though carefully. Do you have a reason for this matter? The king's brow raised. I have only one reason, Your Highness. Please tell me your reason. The reason is that I'm in love with someone I can't marry. I therefore wish to stay by the side of my beloved until old age without wedding ceremony, Your Majesty. The king's eyes widened in astonishment. He tapped his fingers on the reception table rhythmically and pondered for a long time. After some time had passed, and when the chamberlain brought the teapot to the table, the king immediately spoke up. Please get the grand prince for me. Yes, Your Majesty. After the chamberlain had left the room, the conversation between father and daughter began again. Who is the person you love? Princess Anel didn't immediately answer the question, but she pursed her lips tightly. Her two hands clasped together on her lap were wet all the time. Answer me, Anil. Princess Anil admitted that she had never heard her father's stern voice before. Lady Pelantita, Your Majesty. Hearing this, the king was speechless and stunned. His brow frowned, his mouth trembled, and his eyes flashed with unconcealed worry. Nevertheless, Lady Pen is a woman, just like you. When the king said this, he was stunned for a long time. No matter how I looked at it, I couldn't see any way out. Because there is no way to go. Therefore, I have only come to ask for a permission from you to allow me to stop at this point, where I will remain single for the rest of my life, Your Majesty. Princess Anil spoke while locking eyes with her father without averting her eyes at all. Anil, are you sure the love between you and Lady Pen is romantic? I'm sure, Your Majesty. Then why did Lady Pen accept the engagement with Lord Kua? Because Kunpin doesn't want me to give up my royal status. In fact, how did this matter come to be? The king even extended his face to look closely at his daughter with an earnest gesture. I have informed mother that if she doesn't allow me to be Kunpin's spouse, I'll give up my royal status and take Kunpin and run away to be together somewhere else, Your Majesty. Even mothers knows about this? The king's face was perplexed. Probably only me who found out about this later than anyone else. The vice prince doesn't know about this. Princess Anel raised her eyes to meet her father's eyes, pleadingly. Actually, you're not the last person. Do you still have the guts to make a face at me? The king spoke and raised the cup of tea to take a sip in a borderline manner. One half was solemn. Nevertheless, half of him looked relieved that he couldn't tell. You won't change your mind later? If you find any man that you will like in the end. I have loved Kunpin since I was 14 and will love her for the rest of my life. There's no way for me to change my mind, Your Majesty. Princess Anel's eyes were full of sparkles as she spoke about Lady Pelantita in a way that the king had never seen before. What did the mother say? The king's face had remarkably relaxed as he spoke of this sentence. Mother said that what I want isn't suitable for me. And what did you answer to her? I replied that meeting the person I love isn't easy. So if mother could find a man I loved and were of equal or superior rank to me, I would completely forget Lady Pelantita from my heart. At this point, the king placed a small porcelain cup glass on a tea tray with an attitude that makes it very difficult to speculate his thoughts. Answer like that seems to be you. I just answer at it should, whether good or bad. I certainly don't deserve to marry someone I don't like, Your Majesty. Why didn't you come to negotiate like this with me before Kunku and Kunpin got engaged? The king raised his brow high in confusion. The timing of negotiations with father is crucial. I must be careful and consider thoroughly first, Your Majesty. If I insisted on asking permission at that time, then I would be considered a stubborn and unreasonable person and would betray both Antipad and Kunkua. Nevertheless, if I wait for Kunkua's bad qualities to reveal first, everything has a reason and has more weight, Your Majesty. Princess Anil spoke with a light smile on her face. Even if it were now, what if I wouldn't allow you? What will you do? Do I have the right to prohibit your thoughts and actions this time? Princess Anil raised her beautiful face arrogantly before giving the command in a clear voice that resounded. Since our lives are already like being confined in a prison where the bars aren't seen, when it becomes like that, I will not allow anyone to force me to stay in a prison inside a prison again. Then I can only hope that I will not be played a role as a warden in your eyes. The king's eyes seemed to become downcast like a candle's flame, flickering in the wind until it looked like it would soon extinguish. To me, you're not a warden. Nevertheless, you're like a Supreme Court judge who can decide whether my life will go in any direction, bad or good. It depends on how father will decide at this time. Which is good. The king raised the cup of tea and took another sip. Which is bad, because you're such a self centered child. If I decide in your desired direction, you will consider as good direction, right? The king poured tea for his young daughter in an extremely gentle manner. But if it doesn't happen as desired, it is assumed that I had led my child to the bad direction. Your Majesty is very clear. I just know you well. Nevertheless, even if you look all over the world I have never met anyone who's ever satisfied with everything. What privilege do you have to negotiate for everything to be as you wish? I hold the right to be your daughter. Princess Anel put her beautiful face closer to look at her father. Because, in reality, my life belongs to me. What do you mean? The king's brow frowned. It means that I could just take myself and disappear before your eyes. Nevertheless, I'm your daughter. Therefore, if I plan to do anything, I would like to ask for your permission first. It looks like you are threatening me. The king's voice became strong in many parts. No, your majesty. I just want to let you know my thought process. Princess Anel spoke while bowing her body to ask for forgiveness from her father. Love. For the person you love? Is that the most important thing in your life? Maybe. Princess Anel clasped her hands together tightly. And maybe not, your majesty. I'm just a person who is very honest in my feelings. If the lover is the most important, I probably choose to take Kunpin and escape to live with her in England. Nevertheless, I love my family the same. Father, whom I adore most. Mother, whom I never want to be away from. The Grand Prince, whom I love and respect. And the Vice Prince, who is my brother and dear friend. Isn't it because I love and am attached to everyone, which is why I dare to come and negotiate with you today? I didn't ask for a wedding to embarrass you. I just wish to be a couple with Kunpin, quietly, at the Pine Palace, until I'm old. We won't show off to make things ugly. Just look at the surface of the fact that we are friends without a partner. That's all I want. Will you permit me? However, I'm still worried about you. The king spoke before exhaling. When you are old, who will take care of you, since you have no sons or daughters to continue the family name? If I only had money, I don't need children or grandchildren to take care of me. For what reason? The king raised his brow in wonder. Because only if I have a lot of money to spend can I find someone to take care of me. Intensely capitalism. The king just couldn't restrain his laugh. I won't argue with that. During this conversation, Prince Anantavat quietly entered the writing room, but the king could see his eldest son from the corner of his eyes. Prince Anand, come in. He gestured for his eldest son to sit beside his extremely stubborn youngest daughter. Do you know how dare your younger sister? I know, Your Majesty. So you didn't think about dissuading her? It was as if the voices of the king talking to his daughter and son were completely different. Your sister came to ask me to stop looking for a partner. No one can stop Anil, father, the Grand Prince said, respectfully bowing his head to the king. But really, father didn't plan on making Anil a match. Did you, Your Majesty? Don't pretend you know better than me. The king's mustache seemed to twitch slightly, but the Grand Prince continued to speak as if he had made a good decision that no matter how good or bad it was, he just wanted to say things out as he thought. I know this matter better than anyone else. If father wanted to pair Anil with any royal prince, you wouldn't have waited this long. This year, Anil is already 22 years old. If you have eyes on someone, you must start having them come and look at each other during this time, which is considered appropriate. I just don't see anyone worthy of being with Anil. If at this time there is no, then there won't be any more, right? The Grand Prince hurriedly added. Anil is a woman. If she marries without renouncing her royal status, she must marry a lord or above only. If we look around now, there is still no one suitable for Anil. The longer time drags on, the fewer single men left with rank higher than Anil or equivalent. What you just said isn't wrong, Prince Anand. The king began to soften his strict attitude towards his eldest son somewhat. It's not that I haven't thought about it, but no matter what I think, I still can't find the way. The remaining prince, none of them are single. If they are single, they are either disabled or perverted. Prince Anand continued to speak with the attitude of a person with the advantage. For the Lord, if they are not too poor, too shabby, too old, and too pompous, all of them already have wives or fiancés. For those who are highly educated, they tend to marry a commoners or foreigners. What about father had the idea to build the Thaksin Palace as Anil's main residence, even though Anil already has the Pine Palace? What about the construction of Thaksin Palace? The king spoke, raising his hand to caress his beard in a respectful gesture. If Thaksin Palace is built, it means that father doesn't want Anil to marry out or wish for Anil to remain single. But to have a worthy man of the rank of prince or lord to marry and stay here is as difficult as looking for a needle in a haystack. Ha 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 ha. The king just laughs. Then I am very sure that father has no intention of pairing Anil with anyone. The king heard this and nodded in agreement with his eldest son. I couldn't shake the thought that no man could be worthy of Anil. It might be because I am fascinated with my child. What about a woman, father? Do you think that she is suitable with Anil or not? It's very difficult for me to answer your question. But when I thought of bringing any man to Anil's side, I often thought of criticizing those men as being inferior, which should not have happened like that. But when you try to put Lady Pen side by side with Anil, even though I still feel that Anil is superior, nothing displeased my eyes. The king said, raising his cup of tea and taking another sip, as if that was the right thing to do. Your answer surprised me. I myself was also surprised. Surprised that I seemed satisfied with the story going on like this. It is no more than forcing Anil to be married to a man whom Anil is not in love with. It's as if I loved Anil too much to force her heart. The incident at Kunkua's wedding may serve an example for us to begin to realize this, Your Majesty. Indeed, I don't want such a terrible incident to happen to Lady Pin again at this point. Auntie Pad is already deeply hurt, Your Majesty. The Grand Prince bowed and greeted his father with a happy smile. What do you think about the incident at Kunkua and Kunpin's wedding, Anil? The king turned his face to ask his daughter, wanting an answer. I have a neutral opinion, Your Majesty. Whether male or female, there is a mixture of good and bad people. If Kunkua is bad, that doesn't mean all men are bad like him. The same goes with the women's side. It depends on whether we will spend our lives together with the right person or not. Even though sometimes you think you have chosen well, at time past, it turned out that you have made a wrong choice. Anil, are you thinking that everything doesn't depend on gender? The Grand Prince asked his sister. Yes, brother, but if we choose the person we feel satisfied with first, in that way, at least life will be happy for a quite while. Other than that, it might be a matter of timing and fate. But males who are excellent partners are not too rare. The king spoke calmly. Just look at your eldest brother. I am not a perfect partner at all, Prince Anantwut said, bowing his head, feeling guilty of himself. Actually, until now, I still love Chongfa, my close relative. Is it true, Prince Anand? The king's face looked confused again. Absolutely true. I love her so much, nevertheless. She is my close relative. I have a higher education. Therefore, I didn't dare to show that I liked her. And what about Lady Vati? Don't you love her? It's not that I don't love her. Nevertheless, it's not as deep affection as Chongfa, Your Majesty. Why did you confess this in front of me and Anil? Because I know that Anil already knows. I confess to you because I wish to express my experience that what you think is the perfect life partner isn't true. I'm no less evil than Kunkua. Another reason is when I myself can't fulfill the love of my life, I don't want my only sister to suffer the same. I love Anil so much that if she wishes for anything, even if it's the stars or the moon, I'm ready to go and find it for her. Nevertheless, the things that Anil wants is a very simple story. Anil only wishes to stay with her lover until she grows old. So why can't I get it for my sister, Your Majesty? No one is lucky as mother, Prince Anand said, raising his eyes to meet his father's eyes with admiration. Father, you are my role model. Even though you can have some mistresses, nevertheless, you have never caused mother to be annoyed at all. I am not a perfect person like you think. The king was absent mindedly thinking about his forbidden love for the some woman like the grand prince. But when he couldn't confess like his son, he cut things off with a simple word. Actually, neither of us don't want Anil to suffer for not being with the person she loves the most, like Prince Anand. In that case, I agreed not to match the partner for Anil. I can only promise this. Besides that, I only wish that Anil was still here so that I could see your face. Whatever you see fit, please do as you wish. That's it for this chapter, guys, and I'll see you next with chapter 52. Thank you.